The most common tags you'll use when writing HTML are the heading and paragraph tags. They're meant to be used for exactly what you think. Headings are for titles or headings on a page, and this can also include subheadings as well. And the paragraph tag is used to indicate separate paragraphs. Now remember, tags are used to tell a browser what some piece of content is, so that it can then interpret how it should be displayed in the browser. Therefore, for headings, we actually have 6 different levels that have different font sizes, but they are all bold and they will all be placed on their own lines. So let's see how this works. Now remember, when you're coding, that anything you want a user to see in the browser should be located in between the opening and closing body tags. Now if I look over in the browser or the design view, you'll notice that all of my headings are on one line. They're not bold. They're all 12 point and Times New Roman. This is because right now the browser doesn't know that there's a difference between a heading 1, a heading 2, heading 3, etc. So it's just making it look like a generic paragraph style. Well, I don't want these to look like paragraphs. I want them to look like headings. So I need to actually put tags surrounding each of the headings so that the browser knows what they are, so that it knows how to display it. So for the heading 1, in the front of it, I will put the H1 tag, and at the end of it, I want to close it by doing the H1 with a closing /. Now again, I put the closing H1 tag here because if I were to put it at the end of all the headings, then all of these headings would look like the H1 heading. When in fact, I want heading 2 to be a little bit smaller, heading 3 a little bit smaller, to kind of show that hierarchy. Let's see what this looks like. Now that we've given heading 1 a tag, it knows that it needs to be big, bold, and on its own line. So let's see what the different levels of headings look like. We only have 6, so I'm going to copy and paste in front of each of these just to make life easier. So I'll change this to heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, 5, and 6. And truly 2 through 6 are usually meant for subheadings. So I'll go ahead and copy the closing tag and just again change the numbers, because if I open a heading 2, I must close a heading 2. If I open a heading 3, I must close a heading 3, etc. So now when I click in the browser, you'll see that each of these are headings. They're on their own line. They are bold, therefore they're easier to read, easier to scan, and they're going to look separate or different than a regular paragraph. But it's also showing a hierarchy from small font to really large font. So this is showing the importance of the headings. This is the most important heading, second most important, third most important, etc. Now it's really important that you use headings throughout your website, because that is what search engines like Google looks for when they're determining your search engine rankings. Whether you're on the first page of search engine results or on the 5th that nobody ever looks at. So you want to make sure you're at the top of your search engine results, and one way to do that is using proper code to really denote or indicate what each thing is and using it properly. So most of the time you're going to probably be using heading 1, 2, and 3. Most of the time you won't use 4, 5, and 6, or you'll use them kind of in off areas like maybe in the sidebar of your website. Now let's talk about what ones you can use once and which you can use multiple times. Heading 1 you should really only use once on a page because it's the title for the entire page. So you should really only use that one time. The other ones, 2 through 6, you can use as many times as you want to, but you need to keep the hierarchy in mind, meaning that you can have multiple heading 2s on the page, but they should be pretty equal. So for instance, let's say the title of my page was categories of food. Well, my H2 might be fruits, and I'll copy this and put a couple others, and vegetables or veggies, and grains. And the reason why they are all H2 is because they are all different equal categories of food. They're not the exact same thing, but fruits are not more important than veggies. So that's why they get to both be H2. Same with grains. Now I could put subheadings inside of fruits, like maybe I put a subheading for apples, and then maybe I put an H4 for Gala and Red Delicious and green apples, and I don't know what all the apple names are. But that's how you kind of want to work with headings. You want to make sure that they're doing a hierarchy, kind of like you would do if you're creating an outline for a class. All right, so let's move on to the paragraph tags. Now, paragraph tags, if I were just to type, this is my first paragraph, the thing that's tricky is that it shows up looking like a normal paragraph. But what if I wanted to start a second paragraph? This is my second paragraph. And remember, with web design, you don't have to follow the conventional rules that English teachers might want you to follow, where you have 5 sentences in a paragraph. With web design, we actually want things to be short and simple and to the point, and we want to scan with a lot of headings and a lot of lists if lists are appropriate. So make sure that each paragraph has a specific topic, so to speak, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a certain length. Now, if I look over here, this is where the problem happens. Even though I put a return between these two paragraphs, it's not showing up here. Because again, this is just the default style for all text. Even though that's what a paragraph normally looks like, I need to indicate that with tags. So I'll go ahead and open this with a paragraph tag, and I can open the second one with a paragraph tag, and then I can close it. So I'll just go ahead and paste that and put my closing slash, and there that paragraph tag is closed, and so is this one. Now, you're probably asking, why did I have to put a P tag around both of these? Well, because they're two separate paragraphs, so they each need their own set of paragraph tags. So now, as you can see, the first paragraph is on its own line, and the second paragraph is on its own line as well. It didn't change the font because that was the default style of paragraphs, but that's okay. So one thing that a lot of people or a lot of students ask me is they ask, why do headings have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, but paragraphs do not? Well, the headings have different numbers on them because they each have a different style associated with that tag. So the heading 6 has a smaller font size than, say, a heading 3. Now, a paragraph tag, there's no difference in style between paragraph 1 and 2, so there's no need to do that paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, etc. Another thing is if you had that paragraph 1, 2, and 3, and then I decided to actually add a different paragraph in here, that would be tedious because I would have to come back and renumber everything that was after it. So we don't actually want to do that. We would just put another paragraph tag. And even if your paragraph is one tiny little line like this, it should be surrounded with a paragraph tag. Now, these look pretty boring. What's happening here, there's no style, it's not pretty, it doesn't have cool font, it doesn't have colors, etc. But this is actually what real websites, or actually the code part of the website, looks like, the content, the structure part of it. The styles will come later with something called CSS, or cascading style sheets, and we will target each one of these and say, let's say we say everything that is wrapped with an H1 tag should be red and should be 28-point font and should be Helvetica. Okay, so that is what we're going to do later in a CSS video. If you go to hellohappy.org/beautiful-web-type, you can see this web page that shows you an example of all the different types of web fonts you can use through Google Fonts, and that you can use columns, and you can have these huge fonts, and you can have kind of interspersed fonts, so to speak. But if I were to actually take the CSS or the styles off of this, look, everything is really plain and boring like our own website. Now everything is linked, and that's just because in this website, if you click on the font, it'll take you to that Google Fonts directory. But don't worry right now about the pretty of it, so to speak. Just worry about getting it correct, that you have the correct headings and the correct paragraph tags around all of your content. Or if it's not a heading or a paragraph, maybe it's a list or a block quote, then those have the right tags as well.